The room was colder than I remembered. The walls of the Marlowe dining room still held their ancestral grandeur, mahogany-paneled, gloss-polished, every detail immaculate, but none of it softened the tension. I had imagined this moment on the drive over. Maybe a small smile from my mother, maybe my father would surprise me with approval. But I knew better. "I'm getting married," I said calmly, setting my hands on the tablecloth like it might anchor me. Helena looked up from her glass, her lips pursing as if tasting something bitter. "To whom?" The question wasn't curiosity. It was warning. "To Caleb Vance," I said. "We've been together 2 years. He proposed last week." There was a pause. Then her tone clipped and cool. "A plumber?" Graham leaned back in his chair. "Evelyn, marriage is a partnership of equals. You're choosing down." "And he wears cargo pants," Serena chimed in, swirling her wine. "Is that like part of the vows now?" I felt my spine straighten without realizing it. Caleb's kind, brilliant, and good to me. Isn't that what matters? Helena's eyebrows lifted. To some, maybe. The rest of dinner passed in formal silence. I spoke only when necessary. They asked nothing more. But I knew this conversation was far from over. Ever shared good news, and felt the room freeze instead of warm? "I hope you understand," Helena said, 2 days later. "We won't be attending the wedding." Her voice, polished like always, didn't crack. "Protecting the Marlowe name means making difficult choices," Graham added. "We can't support this mistake." Serena didn't even pretend sympathy. I mean, who even shows up to a wedding like that? Backyard barbecue vibes. I could have shouted, pleaded, but I didn't. I only nodded. No one stood. No one hugged me. No one tried. I went home and looked at the RSVP list. I removed 3 names. Would you still get married if the people who raised you turned their backs? I was 10 the year Serena had the ice sculpture at her birthday. Everyone clapped when the swan lit up. My gift sat unopened. "Where's Evelyn's plate?" someone asked after cake. "Oh," Helena said, then called for an extra. Later, I stood in the hallway. They were talking behind closed doors, business plans, family matters. I reached for the knob. It didn't turn. My door never opened. Serena's always did. Not everyone is born a leader, Evelyn. That's what Dad told me after I asked to try out for the debate team. Now, they were dismissing Caleb the same way they dismissed me. Not enough. Not polished. Not Marlowe. I wasn't losing a family. Maybe I'd never had one. Does childhood ever really leave us? Or does it echo in every adult decision? The wedding was simple, intimate, in a garden, under an arch of late summer blooms. 3 chairs in the front row sat empty. I had texted one last time the night before. No reply. Mira Collins squeezed my hand as we lined up. "You sure?" I nodded. Uncle Rowan, bless his heart, whispered, "You're doing the right thing," and kissed my forehead. And then I walked. Alone. The air was so still, even the breeze held its breath. Helena sent nothing. Graham did, one line. "You've chosen your path. Don't expect us at the end of it." I kept walking. If they would not walk with me, I would walk anyway. Then I saw Caleb. He smiled. Not forced. Not nervous. Just steady and warm, like a hand around mine in the dark. Have you ever stood alone and realized you were stronger than you thought? After the ceremony, guests mingled under the soft strum of acoustic music and fairy lights. An older man approached, holding a glass of sparkling water. He looked familiar. One of Dad's old golf buddies, maybe. "You're Evelyn, right?" "Yes," I said, cautious but polite. He looked over at Caleb, who was laughing with Uncle Rowan. "Your husband, Caleb Vance? From MIT. My heart skipped. "I'm sorry," I said. "What?" He tilted his head. "I worked on the Vance Water Project in Haiti years ago. He's brilliant. You knew that, right?" I didn't answer. "Oh," he said softly. I thought you knew. He walked away. I stood still, surrounded by music and laughter, but hearing none of it. Mit? Caleb never said. My family had once tried to pair Serena with a brilliant young engineer. Back when I was still invisible. I remembered the name now. Vance. What would you do if the person you married wasn't who your family mocked, but someone they once wanted? The mornings were quieter than I ever knew they could be. In the small New Haven apartment, with windows that looked out over the rooftops and a little herb garden that Caleb insisted we keep alive, I began to exhale for the first time in my adult life. We didn't have chandeliers or heated floors, but we had peace. Our Saturday routines became sacred. Farmers markets with bags of fresh tomatoes and crusty bread, afternoons assembling furniture with Allen wrenches and curse words, evenings with documentaries and tea. He listened, truly listened, not with the impatient nods I grew up decoding, but with stillness. Eyes that didn't look past me, but into me. When I told him about a bad day, he didn't fix it, he just held space for it. I loved him more each morning. And yet, there was always one room in him I wasn't allowed to open. He didn't talk about his past, not in the way people who have nothing to hide avoid details, but with a precision that felt curated. Have you ever loved someone and realized you still knew so little about them? It was a Tuesday, unremarkable, until I met Marjorie Hale over coffee. She was a former client of my father's, passing through New Haven and curious about my new life. Caleb Vance, she said, stirring her latte. Funny, that kid could have saved your dad's firm from the ethics board years ago. Genius, that one. I blinked. What do you mean? She laughed. He interviewed with Graham, found something fishy in the ledgers, and walked away. Smart, but bold. That night I asked him. He didn't deny it. I didn't want to be part of something rotten, he said. Your father knew what he was doing. I wasn't going to help him clean it up. You didn't think I should know that? My voice was calm. Too calm. I married you, Evelyn. Not your last name. I heard the truth in it, and the omission. What else hadn't, he told me. A week later, I was reorganizing the closet when a dusty folder fell from the top shelf. FOBERT Engineering was scrawled in Caleb's handwriting. Inside, a letter from MIT, a patent draft with his name on it, and a mock cover of FOBERT magazine. His photo front and center. The next clean water visionary. I sat on the floor, the folder open in my lap, my breath stuck somewhere between lungs and throat. This wasn't just about brilliance. This was legacy, recognition, history. And he hadn't told me. I confronted him. He tried to explain. I wanted to be loved for who I am, not for what I've done, he said. You didn't give me a choice, I whispered. That's not love, Caleb. That's control. Would you be more hurt by the secret, or by the silence that kept it hidden? 2 days later, a man in a suit came to my office. He handed me an envelope and left without a word. Inside, a marital asset advisory, thinly veiled legalese suggesting I protect the family fortune from. Well, from my husband. It was from Helena. Of course. Later, Mira told me Graham had said, we just want her to be safe. Plumbers break more than pipes. I didn't tell Caleb. Not yet. Instead, I bought a recorder and started saving every message. Every letter. Every whisper. Would you fight fire with fire or keep your hands clean and build a case quietly? We broke slowly. At first, it was the silences. Then, the way we avoided each other's eyes. One night, I said nothing at dinner. He said less. We slept in separate rooms. I stood by the bedroom door more than once, hand raised to knock. But I didn't. Then Rowan showed up. Just walked in like always, holding bagels and zero judgment. Sometimes, he said, truth waits for trust to catch up. That night, I found a letter on my desk. Caleb's handwriting. He told me everything. About the patent, the rejection, the shame, the hope that someone, someday, would love him without all that noise. We didn't fix everything in one night. But the next morning, we sat at the table. Cold toast, uneaten eggs, tears we didn't hide. No grand gestures, just two people deciding to be honest. That morning, over cold toast and untouched eggs, we decided who we would become, together or apart. They called his name just after lunch. We sat shoulder to shoulder in the second row of the Sustainability Summit in D.C., cameras pivoting, lights humming overhead. Caleb stood, buttoning his jacket with quiet calm. I touched his hand before he walked up. "Caleb Vance," the announcer said, inventor of the Aquaview system, and his wife Evelyn Marlowe, who stood by him when he was just a plumber. The applause hit me first, then the silence in my chest. They saw him. They saw us. In the front row, Helena and Graham sat frozen. Whispers darted between the guests surrounding them. CEOs, professors, diplomats. I caught Helena's mouth tighten, her eyes refusing to blink. He didn't look back at them. He looked straight into the crowd and talked about access to clean water, dignity through innovation, and the power of choosing impact over status. And when he said, "My wife believed in me when it wasn't fashionable," he glanced at me, and I stood taller in my seat. They mocked him. They ignored us. Now the spotlight was ours. Have you ever waited your whole life for someone else to recognize your worth, then realized you only needed to recognize it yourself? 2 days later, I answered a knock at the door to see a reporter holding a camera and confidence. "We're doing a piece on Marlowe Development Group," she said. "Federal inquiry. Shell companies. You wouldn't happen to be willing to talk." She handed me a folder. I didn't open it until she left. Inside were names I knew, dates I recognized, numbers I had once helped file, and Eamon Graves, Serena's boyfriend. He wasn't just charming. He was laundering money through the family charity. My phone buzzed. Serena's name lit up the screen. Evelyn, her voice cracked. I didn't know what we were doing. I swear. I hung up. Later that night, I unlocked the drawer Rowan had given me months ago. A USB labeled if you need it. Emails. Surveillance contracts. An invoice, Margaret's name at the top, hiring a private investigator to verify Caleb Vance's financial validity. Helena hadn't just doubted him. She had hunted him. I sent one email. To the same reporter. I will no longer be an accessory to the silence. When those you called family turn into your biggest challenge, how do you choose to act? At the summit's after-party, the ballroom hummed with glassware and whispers. Helena approached me in her tailored, white dress, her hand extended like nothing had happened. I smiled and stepped away. Later, I took the stage, short, quiet, unannounced. "Silence isn't always acceptance," I said into the mic. "Sometimes it's your strongest statement." I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I just stood there, calm and unshaken. Backstage, a legal assistant slid papers across the table. My signature relinquished my rights to the Marlowe Trust. I signed without a blink. Outside the venue, Serena waited. She had a suitcase. Her mascara was a mess. "I have nowhere else," she said. "I forgive you," I said, "but I no longer support you." She cried. I held the door open, then closed it. I didn't raise my voice. I raised my worth. What if the bravest act isn't to fight back, but to walk away on your own terms? That Sunday, we walked the city park in New Haven. The leaves were turning. My hand curled into Caleb's. He said nothing. Neither did I. Rowan Hale sat on a bench, hands clasped over his cane, watching us like a satisfied ghost. He nodded once. The door never opened for me. They left it unlocked. I chose to walk through anyway. My phone buzzed. A message. Investor from Watershed Ventures. Let's talk soon. Because sometimes winning quietly becomes the louder story.